The crisp autumn morning painted the forest in shades of amber and gold. James Miller, a 45-year-old construction worker, adjusted his orange hunting vest as he walked deeper into the woods. He had been hunting in these parts of Pennsylvania for over 20 years, but today felt different somehow. The leaves crunched softly beneath his boots as he followed a narrow deer trail. His trusted rifle rested comfortably against his shoulder, and his thermos of hot coffee bounced gently against his hip with each step. The morning air was cool and fresh, carrying the sweet scent of pine needles and damp earth. James had woken up at 4 a.m., just like he did every hunting season weekend. His wife Sarah had packed him a simple lunch, 2 sandwiches, an apple, and his favorite chocolate chip cookies. Their teenage kids were still fast asleep when he left the house, having stayed up late watching movies the night before. As he walked further into the forest, something caught his attention. The birds had suddenly gone quiet, usually a sign that deer were nearby. James slowed his pace and moved more carefully, his experienced eyes scanning the surroundings. But instead of hoofprints, he noticed something unusual: broken branches and disturbed ground, as if something had been dragged through the area. Curious, James followed these strange markings. They led him away from his usual hunting path and deeper into a thicket he rarely explored. The morning sun barely penetrated the dense canopy here, casting strange shadows on the forest floor. His hunter's instinct told him something wasn't right. Then he heard it, a soft whimpering sound coming from behind a large oak tree. James tightened his grip on his rifle, not knowing what to expect. Wild animals could be dangerous when injured or cornered. He moved forward cautiously, step by step, making sure to stay aware of his surroundings. As he rounded the massive tree trunk, James froze. His heart seemed to stop for a moment, then started pounding heavily in his chest. There, tied to the tree with a thick rope, was a German Shepherd. The dog was lying on its side, its fur matted with mud and what looked like dry blood. Its ribs showed clearly through its coat, indicating it hadn't eaten properly in days, maybe weeks. "Dear God," James whispered, immediately lowering his rifle and securing it on his shoulder. The dog's eyes opened at the sound of his voice. They were a striking amber color, but filled with fear and exhaustion. It tried to lift its head but seemed too weak to manage even that simple movement. James slowly reached for his water bottle, his movements deliberate and gentle. He had owned dogs all his life and knew how to approach an injured one. "Hey there, buddy," he said softly, keeping his voice calm and steady. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The dog watched him warily, but didn't growl or show any signs of aggression. As James got closer, he noticed something glinting around the dog's neck. At first, he thought it was just a regular collar, but when he carefully brushed aside the dirty fur, his hand began to tremble. There, hanging from a chain, was a military dog tag. The metal was scratched but still readable. The tag identified the dog as Rex and included a service number and unit designation. This wasn't just any abandoned dog. This was a military canine, a trained service animal. "Who would do this to you?" James muttered, anger building in his chest. He had served in the army himself, and the thought of someone abandoning a military dog like this made his blood boil. The rope around the tree was tied with complex knots, suggesting whoever left the dog here knew what they were doing. James pulled out his pocket knife and began carefully cutting through the rope, speaking softly to Rex the entire time. The dog remained still, as if understanding that help had finally arrived. Once the rope was cut, James noticed dark marks around Rex's neck where the rope had dug into his skin. Using the basic first aid kit he always carried while hunting, James cleaned some of the visible wounds as best he could. He offered Rex some water, which the dog lapped up weakly. Then, making a quick decision, James pulled out his phone. He wouldn't be hunting today. Getting this dog to safety was far more important. As he waited for his phone to find signal in the patchy forest coverage, James gently stroked Rex's head. The dog's eyes were starting to look a little clearer, a little more trusting. Neither of them knew it yet, but this chance encounter in the woods would change both their lives forever. The small veterinary clinic buzzed with quiet activity as James carried Rex through its doors. The reception area smelled of antiseptic and pet shampoo, and the morning sunlight streamed through the windows. Several people waiting with their pets looked up in concern as they saw the condition of the German Shepherd in James's arms. "I need help," James called out, his voice urgent but controlled. "I found him tied to a tree in the woods." The receptionist, a young woman named Jenny, immediately picked up her phone. Within seconds, Dr. Sarah Chen emerged from one of the examination rooms, her face turning serious as she assessed the situation. "Bring him into room 3, Dr. Chen directed, holding the door open. James followed her, carefully carrying Rex, who remained surprisingly calm despite being in a strange place. The examination room was warm and bright, and James gently placed Rex on the metal table, keeping one hand on the dog's neck for comfort. Dr. Chen worked methodically, her experienced hands moving with gentle efficiency as she examined Rex. She checked his eyes, ears, and mouth, then ran her hands along his body, feeling for injuries. Rex whimpered only once, when she touched his right hind leg. "He's severely dehydrated and malnourished," Dr. Chen explained, preparing an IV line. "But there's something else that's interesting." She pointed to the way Rex responded to her hand signals, even in his weakened state. "This dog has had extensive training." "Military, you said?" James nodded, showing her the dog tags he found. "His name is Rex. The tags have a service number and unit, but I couldn't find any other information." As Dr. Chen worked, James noticed something peculiar about Rex's behavior. Whenever someone walked past the room wearing white shoes, like several of the clinic staff, Rex would tense up and his eyes would track them intently. It wasn't aggression, but rather a learned response to something. "Look at this," Dr. Chen said, parting Rex's fur near his shoulders. She revealed several small, circular scars. "These are burns, probably from some kind of training device. And these marks here," she pointed to faded lines across Rex's back. "These are older injuries that healed poorly." James felt his jaw tighten. The more they discovered, the worse the story became. Dr. Chen took several photos, documenting everything they found. She explained that in cases of suspected abuse, especially involving service animals, proper documentation was crucial. While Dr. Chen prepared medications and fluids for Rex, James stepped outside to make some phone calls. First, he called his wife to explain why he wouldn't be home for lunch. Then he contacted his friend Mike, who worked at the local VA office, hoping he might have some way to trace Rex's service history. When James returned to the examination room, he found Rex sitting up, a remarkable improvement from the weak dog he found in the woods. Dr. Chen had cleaned him up a bit, and despite his still obvious malnourishment, his eyes looked brighter. "He's responding well to the fluids," Dr. Chen said, making notes in her computer. "But there's something else you should see." She pulled up a scan on her screen. "See these small objects near his shoulder blade? They're microchips, but not the standard kind we use for pets. These are specialized training chips, and they're not legal for civilian use." James leaned closer to the screen, trying to understand what he was seeing. "What does that mean?" "It means," Dr. Chen said carefully, "that whoever had Rex after his military service was using restricted equipment on him. This goes beyond simple abuse. It's illegal modification of a government-trained service animal." As if understanding they were talking about him, Rex turned his head toward them. Despite everything he'd been through, there was still something noble in his bearing, something that spoke of his training and background. James's phone buzzed. A text from Mike at the VA. The message was brief but concerning. "That service number doesn't exist in official records. Something's not right. Be careful." Looking at Rex, who had now rested his head trustingly against James's arm, a decision began forming in his mind. Someone had tried to erase this dog's past, had hurt him and left him to die. But they had failed. Rex had survived, and now he had people on his side. What happens to him now? James asked Dr. Chen, although he already knew what his role would be in Rex's future. Dr. Chen smiled slightly, seeing the determination in James's eyes. "Well, that depends on whether someone is willing to take responsibility for him while we figure out his story." "Then I guess," James said, scratching behind Rex's ears, "he's coming home with me." James's small suburban home buzzed with nervous energy as he prepared the garage for Rex's arrival. His wife Mary helped him lay down old blankets and set up a comfortable corner with water bowls and a soft bed. Their teenage children, Tom and Lisa, watched from the garage doorway with a mixture of excitement and concern. Dr. Chen said we should give him a quiet space at first, James explained, arranging the area to ensure Rex would have a clear view of both the garage door and the entrance to the house. "He's been through a lot, and we don't know all his triggers yet." The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the driveway when Dr. Chen's clinic van pulled up. She had insisted on helping transport Rex to ensure his first introduction to the new environment went smoothly. As she opened the van's back doors, Rex lifted his head alertly, his amber eyes scanning the unfamiliar surroundings. "Easy now," Dr. Chen said softly, helping Rex down from the van. Despite his injuries and weakness, the dog moved with a natural grace that hinted at his military background. James noticed how Rex immediately assessed the area, his trained eyes checking all possible entry and exit points. Then something unexpected happened. As Rex was walking toward the garage, a car backfired in the distance. The reaction was immediate and heartbreaking. Rex dropped to his belly, his whole body trembling, yet his posture wasn't one of fear. It was a trained response, as if he was expecting something to happen next. Dr. Chen quickly knelt beside him, her experienced hands checking his vital signs. "This confirms my suspicions," she said grimly. "These aren't just random reactions. Someone has deliberately reprogrammed his military training, and not in a good way." Inside the garage, once Rex had calmed down, Dr. Chen shared more of her findings with the family. She pulled out her tablet, showing them detailed scans of Rex's injuries and the mysterious chips embedded under his skin. "These chips," she explained, pointing to small dots on the X-ray, "are similar to the ones used in legitimate military K9 training, but these have been modified. They're designed to deliver some kind of stimulus, possibly electric shocks or ultrasonic pulses." Lisa, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "But why would someone do that to him?" Before Dr. Chen could answer, James's phone rang. It was Mike from the VA office. James put the call on speaker so everyone could hear. "James, I did some digging," Mike's voice crackled through the phone. "That service number on Rex's tags? It's formatted correctly, but it's not in any official database. However, I found something interesting. 3 other military dogs disappeared from different bases about 8 months ago. All German shepherds, all with advanced training." The implications hung heavy in the garage air. Dr. Chen nodded slowly, as if this confirmed something she had suspected. "There's a black market for trained military dogs," she explained. "Some private security companies will pay a lot of money for dogs with specialized training, but when the training doesn't go as planned." She didn't need to finish the sentence. They'd all looked at Rex, who had settled onto the blankets but remained alert, his eyes constantly moving between each person in the garage. "There's more," Mike continued. "I talked to a buddy in military police. They've been investigating a private security firm called Black Shield Solutions. The company claimed they could reprogram military dogs for specialized security work, but their methods were illegal and abusive." Dr. Chen finished, her voice tight with controlled anger. "The chips we found in Rex match what you're describing. They were trying to override his original training, but something went wrong." Rex suddenly stood up, his attention fixed on something outside. A white van had driven slowly past their house. James noticed how Rex's muscles tensed, though he made no sound. Even after all he'd been through, his training held. He was alerting them to potential danger without giving away his presence. "We need to document everything," Dr. Chen said, taking more photos of Rex's injuries. "If this is connected to Black Shield Solutions, it's much bigger than just one abandoned dog. This could help expose an entire illegal operation." James looked at his family, then at Rex, who had relaxed slightly but maintained his vigilant watch. What had started as a simple rescue was becoming something much more complicated. They weren't just providing a home for an abandoned dog. They were now involved in uncovering what appeared to be a serious crime. "Whatever's going on," James said firmly, "Rex is safe now, and we're going to help him, no matter what it takes." Mary squeezed his hand in support, while Tom and Lisa moved closer to Rex, their initial nervousness replaced by protective determination. In just a few hours, this damaged but dignified dog had become part of their family, and they would stand by him, whatever challenges lay ahead. A week had passed since Rex came to live with James and his family. Each day brought small improvements in Rex's health and trust levels. The garage had become his safe space, though he now ventured into the backyard for short periods under James' watchful eye. That Wednesday morning started like any other. James was drinking coffee in the kitchen while Mary packed school lunches for Tom and Lisa. Rex lay in his usual spot in the garage, his head resting on his paws but his ears constantly moving, monitoring every sound around the house. The doorbell rang unexpectedly at 7:30 a.m. Through the garage window, James saw two men in dark suits standing at his front door. They wore matching ties and polished black shoes, looking more like government agents than salesmen. Rex's reaction was immediate. His body went rigid, and a low growl rumbled in his throat. "Mary, keep the kids inside," James said quietly, moving toward the door. Through the peephole, he could see the men more clearly now. The taller one held what looked like official identification. "Mr. Miller?" the tall man asked when James opened the door partway. "I'm Richard Conway from Precision Security Solutions, a subsidiary of Black Shield. We're here about the military working dog you recently acquired." James felt his heart rate increase, but kept his voice steady. "I found an abandoned dog in the woods. He's under veterinary care now." Conway smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That dog is company property, Mr. Miller. There was a training incident, and the handler made a regrettable decision to abandon the animal. We've been searching for weeks. We'll take him now and ensure he receives proper care." Just then, James's phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Dr. Chen. "DONT elite RDX. Police and MP investigators on their way." "I'll need to see some official documentation," James said, stalling for time. "Military service dogs have specific paperwork." The shorter man stepped forward, his stance becoming more aggressive. "Listen, we can do this the easy way or—" He was cut off by the sound of police sirens in the distance. Conway's face hardened. "You're making a mistake, Mr. Miller. That dog is dangerous. He's been through specialized training that makes him unpredictable. For your family's safety. The only dangerous and unpredictable ones here are you." James interrupted, his voice firm. "Rex has shown nothing but loyalty and gentleness, despite what you people did to him." Two police cars pulled up to the house, followed by a military police vehicle. Dr. Chen stepped out of her car right behind them, carrying a thick folder of medical documents. Conway and his partner exchanged glances, their confident demeanor cracking. Captain Sarah Rodriguez from the military police stepped forward, her badge glinting in the morning sun. "Mr. Conway, we've been looking for you. We have some questions about Black Shield's dog training programs and the disappearance of several military K9s." James watched as the two men were separated for questioning. Dr. Chen hurried over to him, her face flushed with excitement and relief. "We got them, James," she said, catching her breath. The evidence from Rex's medical exam matched perfectly with the other cases they were investigating. The modified chips, the burn patterns, it all fits the investigation they've been building against Black Shield. In the garage, Rex had calmed down but remained alert. When James checked on him, he found the dog standing guard near the door that connected to the house, positioning himself between potential danger and the family he had come to trust. Captain Rodriguez joined them in the garage, kneeling slowly to let Rex smell her hand. Despite his past trauma, Rex's military training showed through. He recognized a friendly uniform and relaxed slightly. "He's a hero," the captain said, gently patting Rex. "The evidence we found on him, the modified chips, the unusual training scars, it helped us connect Black Shield to 3 other cases of dog abuse. They were taking military dogs and trying to reprogram them for private security work, using illegal methods." James felt a mix of relief and anger. What happens to Rex now? Officially, he was discharged from service. Captain Rodriguez smiled. "Given his trauma and the unique circumstances, the military is happy to release him to civilian life, specifically to your family, if you're willing to make this arrangement permanent." Looking at Rex, who had moved to lean against his leg, James knew there was only one possible answer. This dog had not only become part of their family, but had helped expose a criminal operation. He deserved a peaceful life filled with love and security. "He's already home," James said simply, scratching behind Rex's ears. For the first time since they'd found him, Rex's tail wagged gently, as if he too knew he was finally safe. Spring had arrived, bringing with it warm breezes and new beginnings. 3 months had passed since the confrontation with Black Shield, and Rex's transformation was remarkable. Though the physical scars remained, his spirit grew stronger each day. James sat in the backyard, watching Rex and Lisa during their morning routine. His daughter had shown a natural talent for helping with Rex's rehabilitation. Every morning before school, she would spend 30 minutes working with him on basic commands, helping him relearn trust and gentleness. "Good boy, Rex," Lisa called out as the German Shepherd successfully completed a stay command without showing any anxiety. She rewarded him with his favorite treat, small pieces of boiled chicken that Mary prepared specially for his training sessions. Dr. Chen, who still made weekly house calls to check on Rex's progress, pulled into the driveway. She had become more than just their veterinarian. She was now a trusted friend who had helped them understand Rex's journey to recovery. "I see someone's getting better at his commands," Dr. Chen remarked, watching Rex trot happily toward her. The fear that once clouded his amber eyes had been replaced by a calm confidence. She knelt down to examine him, noting how his coat had regained its healthy shine. "The nightmares are getting less frequent," James told her as they settled on the patio chairs. "He used to wake up 3 or 4 times each night, but now it's maybe once a week." He paused, remembering the early days when Rex's terrified whimpers would echo through the house. Dr. Chen nodded, making notes on her tablet. "His blood work from last week came back perfect, and those mysterious chips we were worried about, they'd become completely inactive. His body has essentially walled them off." Inside the house, Tom was working on a special project. He had convinced his computer science teacher to let him do his semester project on service dog rehabilitation. The wall of his room was covered with charts tracking Rex's progress, everything from his weight gain to his response times to different commands. Mary came out to the patio carrying coffee for everyone. Rex immediately moved to her side, his new protective instinct kicking in. Of all the family members, he had formed an especially strong bond with Mary, often following her around the house like a gentle shadow. "Watch this," Lisa said excitedly. She took out a white tennis shoe, once a trigger for Rex's trauma, and placed it on the grass. In the past, such items would send Rex into a panic, remembering his abuse at Black Shield. But today, he merely glanced at it before returning his attention to his training treats. "That's incredible progress," Dr. Chen remarked, her voice full of professional pride. "The desensitization training is really working." James smiled, remembering the long nights spent in the garage, just talking softly to Rex, helping him understand that not all humans would hurt him. The breakthrough had come one stormy night when thunder, usually another trigger, had boomed overhead. Instead of panicking, Rex had sought comfort from the family, showing his growing trust. "Captain Rodriguez called yesterday," James mentioned to Dr. Chen. "The Black Shield investigation is almost complete. They've rescued 5 more dogs and shut down 2 illegal training facilities." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of a car backfiring in the distance. 6 months ago, this would have sent Rex into a defensive position, expecting pain to follow the loud noise. Today, he merely lifted his head, assessed the situation, and went back to practicing his commands with Lisa. "You know," Dr. Chen said thoughtfully, "Rex isn't just healing. He's helping us understand how to help other rescued military dogs. Every success in his recovery is a roadmap for treating others who've been through similar trauma." Tom came out to the patio, carrying his latest progress chart. "Dad, look at this. Rex's anxiety responses have decreased by 70% since he first came to us." As the family gathered around to look at Tom's detailed charts, Rex moved between them, touching each person gently with his nose, a habit he had developed to reassure himself that his new pack was safe and present. "He's not just surviving anymore," James observed, watching Rex settle contentedly at their feet. "He's living again, trusting again." Mary reached down to stroke Rex's head. "And he's teaching us, too, about patience, resilience, and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds." The morning sun rose higher, casting warm light over the peaceful scene. In the safety of his new family, surrounded by love and understanding, Rex had found not just a home, but a purpose, showing that even the most broken spirits could be restored through patience, dedication, and unwavering love. The local park buzzed with activity on a bright Saturday morning. James and his family had brought Rex for his first public outing, a major milestone in his recovery. 6 months had passed since they rescued him, and Dr. Chen had finally given them permission to try socializing Rex in busier environments. Tom and Lisa walked on either side of Rex, who moved cautiously but confidently along the park's winding path. His new therapy dog vest, marked with K9 Veteran in Training, helped other park visitors understand to give him space. Mary followed behind, carrying a bag of Rex's special treats and his water bowl. Remember what Dr. Chen said? James reminded everyone. If he shows any signs of stress, we head home immediately. But Rex seemed to be handling the new environment well, his ears moving alertly, but his tail relaxed. Then something unexpected happened. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the park's parking lot, and two familiar figures stepped out. Richard Conway from Black Shield, accompanied by a woman in an expensive business suit carrying a leather briefcase. James's heart raced as he watched them approach. Conway had been released on bail pending the investigation, but he wasn't supposed to come near Rex or the Miller family. Before James could guide his family away, Conway and the woman intercepted them on the path. "Mr. Miller," the woman spoke first, her voice professionally crisp. "I'm Patricia Winters, legal representative for Black Shield Solutions. We're here to serve you with papers." She pulled out an official-looking document from her briefcase. Rex, sensing the tension, moved closer to Lisa and Tom, positioning himself between them and the newcomers. His posture remained calm but alert, a testament to his months of rehabilitation. "Our company invested significant resources in that dog's specialized training," Conway added, pointing at Rex. "We're filing for compensatory damages and immediate return of company property." Several other park visitors had stopped to watch the scene unfold. James noticed a young man discreetly recording with his phone, while an elderly couple nearby pulled out their phones, ready to call for help if needed. "Rex is not property," James said firmly, his voice carrying across the now quiet park. "He's a veteran who served his country, and you illegally obtained and abused him. The military police have all the evidence." Patricia Winters smiled thinly. "We have documentation showing Black Shield legally acquired this animal through proper channels. Your family has no claim." She was interrupted by the arrival of two more cars. Dr. Chen stepped out of one, while Captain Rodriguez emerged from the other. They had set up this public outing together, anticipating that Black Shield might try something. "Actually," Captain Rodriguez said, walking up to the group, "we have some papers to serve as well." She pulled out her own set of documents. "These are federal charges against Black Shield Solutions for illegal acquisition of military assets, animal abuse, and tampering with government property." Dr. Chen moved to stand beside Rex, who had remained remarkably composed throughout the confrontation. "I documented every injury, every illegal modification, and every sign of abuse," she added. "Would you like to explain the unauthorized chips we found? Or the chemical burns? Or perhaps the evidence of electric shock treatments?" Conway's confident demeanor cracked slightly. More park visitors had gathered, many recording the scene on their phones. Black Shield had wanted to handle this quietly, but now their attempts to reclaim Rex were being witnessed by dozens of people. "This isn't over," Conway growled, but Patricia Winters placed a restraining hand on his arm. She could see they were fighting a losing battle, especially with so many witnesses. "We'll handle this through proper legal channels," Winters said stiffly, but her eyes showed uncertainty as she watched Rex calmly sitting between Tom and Lisa, showing none of the aggressive behavior Black Shield had tried to program into him. As Conway and Winters retreated to their SUV, the crowd of park visitors broke into spontaneous applause. An elderly veteran approached James, tears in his eyes. "I served with K9 units," he said. "What you're doing for this dog, it matters. It really matters." Captain Rodriguez stayed to explain the new developments to the family. The documentation they gathered about Rex's case had helped build a federal case against Black Shield. The company's attempts to reclaim him had only strengthened the evidence against them. "Rex isn't going anywhere," she assured them, patting the dog's head, "except home with his family, where he belongs." Looking at Rex, now happily accepting treats from Lisa while Tom showed curious kids his therapy dog vest, James felt a deep sense of pride. Their rescued dog had not only overcome his trauma, but had helped expose a criminal organization. More importantly, he had become an irreplaceable part of their family. The courthouse buzzed with quiet energy on the morning of Black Shield's trial. James and his family sat in the front row of the crowded courtroom, with Rex lying calmly at their feet. The past month had brought remarkable changes. Rex had completed his therapy dog certification, and today would mark his first official assignment. Judge Sarah Thompson had specifically requested Rex's presence in the courtroom. Several former military dogs, all victims of Black Shield's illegal training program, would be mentioned during today's proceedings. Rex, now a symbol of recovery and hope, would help demonstrate the contrast between Black Shield's cruelty and the possibility of rehabilitation. "All rise," the bailiff called out. As everyone stood, Rex remained perfectly still, his training evident in every controlled movement. Conway and other Black Shield executives sat at the defendant's table, their expensive suits and confident smiles unable to hide their nervousness. Dr. Chen was the first expert witness called to testify. She brought x-rays, medical records, and detailed documentation of the abuse Rex and other dogs had suffered. As she spoke, Rex quietly moved closer to Lisa, who had begun to cry while hearing the full extent of what he had endured. "The modified chips we found weren't just for training," Dr. Chen explained to the jury, pointing to enlarged images. "They were designed to cause pain, to break these dogs' spirits. But what Black Shield didn't understand was that you can't break a military dog's loyalty, you can only redirect it." Tom sat with his laptop open, updating the rehabilitation blog he had started about Rex. Their story had gained national attention, inspiring other families to adopt retired military dogs. The blog had become a resource for understanding trauma recovery in service animals. During a brief recess, Mary noticed how Rex kept glancing at a young woman sitting alone in the back of the courtroom. She was wearing a military uniform and seemed to be fighting back tears. Captain Rodriguez quietly explained that she was Sarah Bennett, one of the original K9 handlers whose dog had disappeared during Black Shield's illegal operation. James watched as Rex gently stood up and walked toward Sarah, his movement smooth and deliberate. Without prompting, he placed his head in her lap, something he now did often to comfort people in distress. Sarah's tears fell freely as she stroked his fur, seeing in Rex the same loyal spirit she had known in her own lost partner. "The defense calls Richard Conway to the stand," the bailiff announced as court resumed. Conway walked past the Miller family, his face hard with suppressed anger. Rex remained perfectly calm, showing how far he had come from the traumatized dog they had found in the woods. Conway's testimony quickly unraveled under cross-examination. The prosecutor presented evidence of illegal purchases, falsified documents, and the cruel training methods Black Shield had employed. With each revelation, the jury's expressions grew more disturbed. "And can you explain this video?" the prosecutor asked, playing footage from Black Shield's training facility. The sounds of dogs in distress filled the courtroom. Rex, instead of being triggered by the familiar sounds, moved closer to Tom and Lisa, offering comfort rather than needing it. During the lunch break, several jury members asked permission to meet Rex. They had heard so much about him during the testimony, and seeing his gentle interaction with the children in the courtroom had made a strong impression. Each time someone approached, Rex demonstrated perfect therapy dog manners, his traumatic past evident only in the scars hidden beneath his fur. "Your Honor," the prosecutor said during closing arguments, "the transformation of Rex and other rescued dogs shows us two things. First, the deliberate cruelty of Black Shield's actions, and second, the incredible resilience these animals possess when given proper care and love." Sarah Bennett approached the Miller family as they waited for the jury's decision. "Watching Rex today," she said, wiping her eyes, "gives me hope that maybe my Zeus is out there somewhere, waiting to be found and saved too." James looked at his family. Mary recording notes for her support group for families of rescued service dogs, Tom updating his blog, and Lisa sitting on the floor next to Rex, who kept a watchful eye on everyone around them. What had started as a chance encounter in the woods had grown into something much bigger than themselves. "Rex isn't just a survivor anymore," James said to Sarah. "He's showing others the way forward. Every person he helps, every smile he brings. It's his way of continuing to serve, just in a different uniform now." Outside the courthouse, reporters waited to hear the verdict, but inside, Rex had already won his most important victory, showing that even the deepest wounds could heal with time, love, and a new mission to fulfill. 1 year had passed since the Black Shield trial. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the local Veterans Center, where Rex lay calmly beside a young soldier who was struggling with PTSD. The soldier's hands shook as he spoke about his experiences, but they steadied as he stroked Rex's fur. James watched from across the room, amazed at how far they had all come. The trial had ended with Black Shield's executives receiving prison sentences, and their case had led to new laws protecting military working dogs. But Rex's greatest achievement wasn't helping to bring down criminals. It was the lives he touched every day. "Your dog," the young soldier said to James, his voice stronger now. "He understands, doesn't he? It's like he knows exactly when I need him close." James nodded, remembering how Rex had shown the same intuition during his own recovery. The Veterans Center had become their second home. 3 days a week, Rex worked as a therapy dog, helping soldiers deal with trauma and anxiety. His own story of survival and recovery resonated deeply with the veterans, many of whom had worked with military dogs during their service. Tom arrived after school, carrying his laptop. His blog about Rex had grown into a full website dedicated to military dog rehabilitation, complete with training resources and success stories. Several military dog handlers had used his documentation to help in their own rescue efforts. "Dad," Tom called excitedly, "remember Sarah Bennett from the trial? They found Zeus." He showed James a recent email with photos of another rescued German Shepherd, thin but alive, discovered in an abandoned training facility. They're using Rex's recovery plan to help him adjust. Lisa, now working part-time at Dr. Chen's clinic, joined them during her break. She had decided to become a veterinarian, inspired by Rex's journey. Her experiences helping with his rehabilitation had shown her the powerful bond between animals and humans, and how that bond could heal both. Mary arrived shortly after, bringing Rex's favorite treats. She now ran a support group for families adopting traumatized service dogs, sharing the lessons they'd learned during Rex's recovery. The group had helped place dozens of retired and rescued military dogs in loving homes. As the afternoon session began, more veterans arrived. Each had their own story, their own battles, but Rex approached them all with the same gentle understanding. He would lie quietly beside those who needed calm, play with those who needed joy, and simply be present for those who needed a silent companion. Dr. Chen stopped by to check on Rex, though her visits were now more social than medical. "You know," she said to James, "when you first brought him in, I hoped we could save his life. I never imagined he would go on to save so many others." Captain Rodriguez, who had become a close family friend, arrived with special news. The military had created a new program for retiring K9s, ensuring they would be properly cared for after their service. They were calling it the Rex Initiative, in honor of the dog who had exposed the need for better protection. As the day went down, a small ceremony began. The Veterans Center was presenting Rex with an honorary service medal, not for his military past, but for his work helping fellow veterans heal. As James attached the medal to Rex's therapy dog vest, he remembered the frightened, injured dog they had found in the woods. "Rex isn't just our family's hero," James said to the gathered crowd, his voice thick with emotion. "He's proof that the darkest experiences don't have to define us, that with love, patience, and purpose, we can all find our way back to the light." The ceremony ended with Rex doing what he did best, moving among the veterans, offering comfort and companionship, his own scars hidden beneath his healthy coat, but his spirit shining bright and strong. That evening, as the family drove home, Rex sat contentedly in the back seat between Tom and Lisa. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and gold, much like that autumn morning when James had first found him. "You know what's amazing?" Mary said softly, looking back at Rex. "He never gave up. Through everything Black Shield did to him, everything he suffered, he kept his capacity to love and trust." James smiled, watching in the rearview mirror as Rex rested his head on Lisa's lap, completely at peace. The scared, broken dog from the woods had transformed into a hero, not because of his past training or his dramatic rescue, but because of his endless capacity to turn his own healing into hope for others. In the end, Rex's greatest victory wasn't surviving his ordeal. It was showing others that they could survive theirs too.